Oh, good evening, everybody. I'm going to go into a little bit about how our union and our union as a leader of something called the Public Employees Committee of the San Francisco Labor Council got snookered into including in the retirement measure a very serious poison pill. And lessons learned, I just hope, I think this has happened twice in this kind of negotiation with the city. The stalking horse in this thing was the Adachi measure, which got onto the ballot with signatures. Apparently they had to have almost 76,000 signatures to even get 48,000 valid signatures, and a lot of money was paid per signature. And Jeff Adachi's measure takes a substantial bite in terms, a new bite for pension contributions, more, and it's known as Prop D. And it was out there, and the city was negotiating, in quotation marks, with a group of public sector unions with this Public Employees Committee of the Labor Council, often at Local 21 offices, and the chair of the Public Employees Committee was the executive director, is the executive director of Local 21, whose name is Bob Muscat. And he kept some of the folks who should have been at that table away from the table. He particularly kept retirees themselves. And one of the people on the panel, I think even got personally kind of kicked out of a meeting by Bob Muscat and tried to attend his meetings. I think there was one retiree from the fire department who was able to go to a few of those meetings. So the meetings did not include some of the people that would be most affected. And I would argue they certainly weren't collective bargaining because they didn't result in anything that came into a contract or changed the contract except through the ballot. That didn't go to the membership. In fact, the rank and file membership was very little involved, and there was nothing like a contract ratification had there been something that was really, truly collective bargaining. It was kind of done from the top down by this Public Employees Committee made up of union staff and a few elected leaders of unions, SEIU and Local 21, and a few of the craft unions, and I believe some folks from police and fire. Was that as well? Yes. And negotiations were going on. They had exhausted the city, the public sector union people with lots of facts and figures and how the pension fund, which actually is pretty well funded, was going to go down the tubes. But as the discussions evolved, the emerging city measure was going to take less away from the retirees in terms of, less away from active employees for their retirement contributions compared to Adachi. So it was better than Adachi, and I think that was how they said, well, support what we're going to do. It moderates what Adachi is going to do, and it'll be a better deal. Maybe we can get Adachi to take his off the ballot, but it's going to be a better deal for city employees. It doesn't take quite as much away as far as increasing contributions. At the very last minute, and I know that the team from our union, Local 21, knew of the trick and tried to fight the trick, but the trick was to put in at the very last minute a completely different kind of measure related to the health services system. And that's the one that I'm personally most concerned about. The measure that was done was to take control of the health services system board away from the beneficiaries. the Health Services Board may be something that people don't know too much about, particularly the voters of San Francisco. Probably union members know a lot about a healthcare trust fund. It's where health benefits come from, health benefits that are bargained as part of our contracts, and then they're administered through a trust fund that has relations with groups like Kaiser or Blue Cross, and administers the things that take care of us when we're sick and take care of us to make us well. But the poison pill would change the control of this Health Services Board from people elected, 4 members that were elected by the beneficiaries and 3 members appointed through the city process, to a different composition where the majority of the people would be appointed by the city. And it would also change language that said you needed a supermajority vote to change the benefits and to change the financial aspects of the health plan, to change it to 4 votes. And that would give the city, as the employer, control of the health benefits. And I can give you a little bit of history about, there was a reform measure, I think it was in 2002, that actually took back control of the Health Services Board and gave it to members through their votes on the people, the trustees for this Health Services Trust Fund, which runs the health benefits. And it cleaned up the system a lot. It meant that members didn't have to, they cared about how the system was administered, about how phone calls were answered. They cared about getting competitive prices from the health bidders. And they managed it pretty effectively. In fact, some years there would even be a surplus, and that was just too tempting for the city. The city wanted to take that surplus and take it away from the trust fund and put it into the city's budget. And they fought with the board. I know that Claire Zvansky has been a long-term member of it. She fought very, very hard to protect the fiduciary responsibility that she felt as a trustee for this health fund, to say that it had to be used for the members, to reduce the premiums or the co-pays for members and not just be taken back by the city. They punished Claire Vansky by a demotion that lost her a lot of benefits in terms of her retirement. She's now retired, but she waged a very courageous fight. And one of the people she fought most with was Sean Ellsburn. And it's not a coincidence that Sean Ellsburn was the author of this very mean measure to take the members' control of the Health Services Board away from the members. I found out in looking at things about this that maybe some of you are in craft unions or some other private sector unions. There's a law called ERISA that covers laws of, or there are some federal standard laws about how trust funds are to be administered, particularly union trust funds. And the federal law for the health type of trust fund is that you have 3 from each side, and you have 1, if they have a conflict, then you get an arbitration process with a neutral. So there's not one side, or not the employer side in control and not the beneficiary side in control, but an attempt to balance. But what San Francisco is doing and Sean Ellsburn is doing less than what federal law provides in terms of private sector. I think that's unconscionable. I think it's going way backwards. And both as somebody who cares about active employees in the city and as a retiree, I care about what's going to happen if this Prop C measure passes to health benefits in San Francisco. I think that not only will they try to grab any surpluses that happen rather than expend them to offset costs for members. They'll get rid of something called Healthcare Plan 1, which covers people when they retire who move away out of the area. Our Healthcare 1 also covers people who have extraordinary illnesses, either from themselves or their dependents, and need a special kind of coverage or a special kind of care, and then that's the plan that is best for people who have an extraordinary medical condition to deal with. With this little wording that they can control the plans and the finances with a 4-person vote, and that they have 4 members that represent the employer. They can change premiums. They can change co-pays. They can take away dependent coverage. And I think they will, and I think it's going to be very bad. We don't know what the future holds, and because of that, the controller, in evaluating the financial impacts of whether there be any cost savings from this health services part of Prop C, said it's neutral. He can't tell. It might be more money for the city. It might be less money for the city. Can't tell. So they can't attribute any real cost savings. I think, in fact, the fact that there's been member accountability has meant the system has run efficiently and well and has not gotten into trouble with fraud. There was problems of fraud before the membership had the control of the fund. The lesson I take away from it is last-minute poison pills. Certainly we need to be aware of that. I don't know what to say about how we affect the situations where decisions are made that the people who are affected by the decisions aren't there participating. This was a multi-employer trust fund, this health service trust fund, both the school district and the community college and the city and county. There was no one from the community college, there was no one from the school district. And we're hurting the teachers, we're hurting faculty at community college, both people who are working there now and retirees from those places. They weren't there to talk about this. It was so badly put together. I just hope the Labor Council at some point has a wake-up call and knows that it's important to represent all the people, all the union members, whether they're retired or active, and if it's a multi-employer situation, to have the other entities besides city and county there working on the issues. So it's not a very pretty picture. I'm definitely against Prop C. The group that I work with, Protect Our Benefits, is also against Prop D. I think they're both takeaways. I think there's other ways, and I think other speakers will speak to that, other ways the city can get revenue besides on the backs of workers. So that's my comments. It took a long time, but thank you.